Let's jump right in. Every day, millions of us casually toss some sugar into our morning coffee or treat ourselves to a sweet dessert. It's just so ordinary, right? Almost invisible. But here's the thing. Behind every single tiny crystal of sugar is a genuinely epic story stretching back thousands of years. We're not just talking about food history here. We're looking at a tale of massive global exploration, science, immense wealth, and, as we'll see, profound human struggle. This simple white crystal literally helped build economies and connect continents. So, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tracing the incredible journey of sugar.
Seriously though, what is the true cost of a simple sweet? When you rip open one of those little paper packets at a diner, you probably aren't thinking about the massive historical forces that put it on your table. But in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers and uncover exactly how a localized, wild plant transformed into an absolute global obsession.
All right, moving into Section 1, an ancient sweet discovery.
Our story kicks off far away from any modern factory. We're heading deep into the lush, tropical environments of Southeast Asia and New Guinea. Long before global shipping or industrial farms were even a thought, the humid climate here created the perfect home for a very specific type of wild grass. More than 8,000 years ago, early communities figured out that this tall green plant, what we know as sugarcane, actually held a naturally sweet juice. Can you imagine being the first person to stumble upon that? Just finding this highly concentrated burst of sweetness growing wildly in the sun. What an absolute game changer.
Now, back then, people obviously had no idea how to manufacture the fine white crystals we use today, so they just kept it simple. They'd chop down the heavy cane, chew directly on the fibrous stalks, and basically drink up the sweet liquid inside. It was a totally local, unprocessed treat enjoyed right there in the fields where it grew. Which brings us to Section 2, the birth of crystals. So as people naturally started traveling and trading, sugarcane didn't just stay put. It spread across Asia and eventually hit a major turning point in ancient India. People realized, hey, this plant would be incredibly valuable if we could just figure out how to preserve it. And that brings us to the word sharkara. It's a Sanskrit word meaning small grains or crystals, and it literally became the phonetic root for the word sugar in dozens of languages all over the world. It was these ancient Indian craftsmen who finally cracked the code of crystallization.
Around 500 BCE, they figured out a completely revolutionary technique. By crushing the cane, vigorously boiling the juice over an open fire, and carefully removing the water, they were left with solid, concentrated sugar crystals. Now, why does this matter? Because suddenly, sweetness could travel. It was so much easier to store and transport. For centuries after this, India stood as the absolute center of global sugar knowledge.
Looking at the timeline, you can see how this knowledge spread like wildfire. From India, it moved through Persia and the Middle East, and eventually made its way toward Europe. Thanks to vast trade networks, Arab scientists and farmers got their hands on it and vastly improved how it was grown and refined. During the expansion of Islamic civilization, sugarcane farming blew up, spreading all across North Africa, Spain, and the Mediterranean.
Okay, on to Section 3, the era of white gold.
When sugar finally made its way into medieval Europe, you have to understand it was not the everyday pantry staple we know. No way. It was an incredibly rare, almost mythical treasure. Because it was so scarce and astronomically expensive, it earned a highly accurate nickname among royalty, white gold. It costs an absolute fortune to import, so just having a little bit of sugar in your house was the ultimate flex to show off your immense wealth.
Literally, only the mega-rich could even look at this stuff. They used it to make exclusive royal desserts, preserve fruits, and strangely enough, even as an expensive medicine. But the most wild display of wealth? The sculptures. European royals would actually hire artists to mold this white gold into enormous statues for their parties, just to show their guests how unimaginably rich they were. Pure, edible status symbols.
This leads us into Section 4, plantations and human cost.
As European demand for this luxury absolutely exploded in the 15th and 16th centuries, nations scrambled to find tropical regions where they could grow sugarcane on a massive scale. The newly established territories in the Caribbean and the Americas offered the perfect warm climate. Practically overnight, sugar became one of the most wildly profitable industries on Earth. But we really need to pause here and acknowledge the horrifying human cost of that wealth. To run these massive, highly profitable plantations, millions of enslaved Africans were forced across the Atlantic. The European powers relied entirely on brutal systems of forced labor to maximize their sugar yields.
It's an unavoidable fact. The history of sugar is permanently linked to immense suffering and exploitation. The seemingly harmless European obsession with this sweet luxury played a direct, massive role in driving the expansion of the transatlantic slave trade. It's a stark reminder for us that global economic booms have historically come with a devastating human toll.
Let's move to Section 5, the modern sugar era. Heading into the colonial period, sugar hit North America. Places like Louisiana, with their warm, fertile land, built massive sugar industries. And over the decades, as farming and transport tech advanced, we saw a dramatic shift. Just look at this contrast. In medieval Europe, sugar was literally white gold for the ultra-elite. But fast forward to 18th and 19th century America, mass production and better shipping completely flipped the script, turning it into a plentiful, affordable staple for everyday people. And because it was suddenly so cheap, it completely revolutionized our diets. Adding affordable sugar to historically bitter drinks like tea, coffee, and chocolate, that changed global drinking habits overnight. Baking totally transformed. Cakes and candies were everywhere. The modern, sugar-heavy diet as we know it today was essentially born right here.
Then came another major plot twist, the sugar beet. Scientists discovered that sugar could actually be extracted from a root vegetable. This was a monumental agricultural shift. Before this, you had to have a hot tropical climate to grow cane. But sugar beets, they could thrive in cooler, temperate regions all over Europe and North America. This totally broke the reliance on the tropics and made sugar universally accessible worldwide. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. Behind every ordinary sweet treat is a genuinely monumental human journey. The next time you rip open a tiny packet of sugar for your coffee, will you remember the history packed inside it? The 8,000 years of discovery, the ancient innovators, the medieval kings, the horrific suffering of the plantation era, and the massive global trade networks that put that little white crystal right into your hands? Thanks for exploring this with me today, and remember to keep questioning the hidden stories behind the everyday things we take for granted.